day at that. Anyway, about an hour or so later, my wife come running into me. Jacob, you need to get up. You need to get up. It's flooding. Halfway, sort of went downstairs, and there was water, sort of fairly slowly, but obviously still far from ideal, coming in under the doors, the side of the doors, front door, back door, side door. So we quickly got as many towels as possible together, trying to mop it up and sort of barricade it and block it. And after about 45 minutes of that, it was sort of up to our ankle heights, and we were trying to block it down the sink. And then come about 3 a.m, it was then up to our knees, and we still had to sort of evacuate upstairs.
A real picture. How's it looking now? Back to your home?
Not yet, but yeah, so fingers crossed we will be downstairs at the moment. It's just floorboards everywhere. We've got 4 dehumidifiers, so there's all the ground issues in the house. We've just got some running sort of round the clock, and we're still getting a good few buckets a day out of those.
So it's a big job. It's going to take you weeks more to fix it.
Yeah, fortunate to have not experienced this before. Obviously, unfortunate to have never experienced this, which obviously we are now. So we're quite a little bit blind in terms of how long it will take the fires, etc. to get rid of the water, and then we can look to get carpets replaced, etc.
You had home insurance before, so it wasn't valid. Building that you decided you wanted to finished. Obviously, you have the intention to get insurance, that's all work is done. Does this show the risk of cover?
It certainly does. The main part of the
Jacob, thank you so much for starting our programme with the cautionary tale and best of luck. Laura, it's too late for Jacob in terms of his insurance. For other people, there are specialist policies out there for treating that really cover them during that war. Absolutely. So we always advise people to get insurance as soon as they can. If you're buying a new home, that should be for buildings insurance for the men who exchange exchange when they've got that financial investment in that property. And if you are doing significant renovation or construction works to your property, even if you've got a current policy, we always suggest that you should give your insurer a call, have a chat with them, and just let them know that you're doing these works, and they'll make sure that you're covered for any additional issues that could happen during those that construction or renovation phase as well. I just also wanted to touch on Jacob's comment about getting those carpets replaced. Really good idea not to put carpets back in, Jacob, to get some more resilient floor that would not be such a problem if it was to happen again.
Something that doesn't soak up the water quite so easily.
Last
year, £352 million was paid out by insurers for damage caused to homes just by storms Beth, Kieran and Debbie at the end of last year. Now, we don't yet know the full cost of Storm Hank. What other reasons might somebody's insurance be invalid, other than what Jacob saw? What should people watch out for?
I think generally speaking, your insurance, as long as you've been very clear with the insurer and honest when you purchased your policy, you should be covered for everything that you're covered for. Now, flood and storm is very standardly included within that policy, so it's always a good idea when you're buying to make sure you understand what you're covered for, and the insurer will be really clear, or the broker, if you're buying from the broker, will be extremely clear with you at the beginning on what is and not to be included.
I do say it every time we talk about insurance, though, read the small print. It does really matter in cases like this. Right, if your car was repeatedly stolen, then your insurance would quite quickly become unaffordable. But when someone like Jacob comes to insurance, he is likely to be able to find affordable premiums, and that despite the flood risk. That is thanks to a UK-wide reinsurance scheme called Flood Re. Heather, there'll be many people listening who are blessed with not having to think about reinsurance. Can you briefly explain what Flood Re is and what difference it makes to people like Jacob?
So in a nutshell, Flood Re is an initiative between the insurance industry and the government, and basically it is a flood reinsurance, as you said, scheme which promotes and provides affordability and availability of insurance in UK households by flood risk. It makes a huge difference, but it's really easy to know whether the insurance policy you are taking out has a connection with Flood Re. So again, it's always a good idea to ask either for whatever policy you're taking out that
So the idea is that everybody has insurers are part of it. It funds the scheme, and then whoever is supposed to get more affordable cover, they won't find themselves priced out by the insurance. Are the premiums still affected by the flood risk?
Yes, I mean, if you happen to be insured by someone who's not connected to Flood Re, then premiums in excess of the are high. However, we are finding from our helpline at the National Platform that people are seeing, even with a Flood Re connection, that they seem to be quoting higher.
Laura, we should make it really clear, shouldn't we? Not everyone is protected by Flood Re, only older ones.
So generally speaking, the insurer will determine whether a property goes into Flood Re or not, but if they're not putting it into Flood Re, then they'll still continue to provide that flood cover because they're clear that they're not, it's not included. But you're right that there are some properties out of scope of Flood Re, and that was an agreement between government and insurers that buildings built after 2009 are not included, and that's really to disencourage the development of properties in high flood risk areas being built where they shouldn't be, and then that's not causing the problem of flood risk in the UK to get even worse than it already is.
Although a parliamentary report might look at again in a moment suggests it's not necessarily working. Right, businesses are also not included. When I went to meet Ben Turner, he has several rental properties and owns over 7 in England. One side of town has flood defences, and on the other side they haven't yet rebuilt.
Right, so here we go. So yeah, this is the property that was flooded, or has been flooded every year, and obviously since then we haven't been able to rent it out. So it's been empty.
Site where they've looked at their insurance.
I appreciate that, but I'm just saying for those listening today, it might be worth them having a look. Build Back Better is a really positive step in the right direction. Home insurance has never been about better than now. They're making people's homes even better than they were before, and this is a concept that is doing exactly that for those that are struggling. So I
appreciate it. I really feel for Adrian thinking that he's about to get an extra £10,000 and then finding out he's not. So I think, you know, it's a really positive step forward in the industry signing up to this. There are a number of insurers that are doing it. It's only been available for 18 months and it's in the process of getting used more and more. So I think I appreciate that it might not be felt to Adrian. I'd encourage him to have a look at the potential grants that are available from the government, as Heather mentioned earlier. And you know, it's a step in the right direction from the insurance industry perspective and will get better and better once insurers have managed to implement the next steps. But in the meantime, if you're taking out a home
咩咁耐先出到嚟咁樣嗰個
policy and you are taking out that
You don't know?
not just check your
What were you
insurance
doing?
website, or have a look at flood release website.
嚇
Yeah, it's a really good idea. Flood
Well,
release
telling
website
me?
is really useful.
Why?
Available for individuals.
Oh.
So have a look at that. Okay. Well, we mentioned flood defences. How we talked a bit about what the communities get. Let's hear from Nick from Worcester. He lives in a fairly remote location, and he was never going to be a priority kind of state-funded flood defences. So he's done it himself. He has built a massive flood wall around his home and his garden.
Living by the river was part of the attraction. It's a beautiful part of Worcestershire that we live in, but just occasionally we do get the water from River Severn surrounding our house. In the last 4.5 years, we've had 10 floods. The wall is made of hollow concrete blocks, then built with concrete. It's got reinforced bar to make it extremely strong. It's about 110 metres long. It cost around about £80,000. It's definitely a remortgage type of undertaking. It's like building an extension of a house. It will make a house resellable and do make it sell. So it's remarkable.
Look, it absolutely is worth it. I've seen pictures of his house and it's flooded, and it is literally an island, just his walled off property standing alone in the water. However, I've seen more people taking these types of really extreme defence measures. Yes, we are. We're seeing a lot of people investing in this, but also we're extremely aware and know people that you know, would never have that kind of choice of being able to make that kind of decision, and that, you know, for them it's, you know, getting through the week and ensuring that something is there to eat at the end of the week. So I think that, you know, we have that really worry that people that cannot possibly afford some of these resiliencies, and they are expensive, and those people who society investing who are able to financially do that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of people will struggle to find an £80,000 wall. I did see a lot of smaller scale flood protections in Google. Run me through the kinds of action people can take. So people in Google have got what's called PFR, property level resilience. So this is mirrors and every covers pumps, obviously very important to say, and they can use these to try and keep the house to a level that's without property. Sometimes they can also keep silting out if you want to keep it there to resist the water and give you more time to repair. However, there are still. Absolutely. And what about not shouldn't have Wednesday.
Well, it is worrying, isn't it? You know, are we a couple to run to the hills and about the rest of the country? You know, expensive travel with climate change and the impacts it's having on us. So this is really so far
That is all the time. Attach front on panel to show the Norwich Ski Association Cottage Insurance telephone. All there is that one box. Saturday. We'll be talking about energy costs, road rides, and solar emissions. If you want to get in touch with him about that, or to about anything else, dial 113. Until then.
Today's programme was presented by Felicity Hamilton, and Sarah Rodgers. Mental illness is running around the world, expecting life lessons following a terrible crash. So,
哥，你翻屋企先定係去一齊去郵局？你翻屋企先定一齊去 post office？ Yes, you can. So you want to talk to people? Although you want to talk to people.
this Friday's episode will ask whether we should abandon swathes of countryside and let nature reclaim it. Our Radio 4, Smita Mundasad hears about a life-changing interest in this week's new science. There was a really bizarre moment which was featured in my mind. I remember thinking specifically that this is how I die, and that's a shame.
That's Niall McCann. What you just heard is him crashing into a mountain at 50 miles an hour. This is Inside Her with me, Smita Mundasad. The story you're about to listen to is not an easy one to hear. Niall talks about his devastating accident, which remarkably he survived. He speaks too in some detail about his surgery and recovery. We hear how he learns to cope with, and sometimes even laugh about, very serious injuries that have changed his life.
I'm going to embrace the fact that I have bladder incontinence and bowel incontinence and sexual dysfunction because I can, and I really hope that other people feel that that gives them the permission to embrace it.
I meet him at his home in Newport, South
Nice to meet you. Come on in.
I'll just have a log back.
Sweet, that was yours. Oh, you're welcome.
How will we start with that day in May 26th?
Yeah, it was looking forward to it for so long. The opportunity to fly off the summit of Hennepin, as mountain in South Wales. It's very rare that the winds went in the perfect direction to be able to safely fly off that summit. But all of a sudden, May the 6th, 2016, the winds had switched round to the northeast. My brother and I decided that we were going to fly off the summit in our ski rings instead of floating around and enjoying the view. With the ski ring, you run or you see your momentum, plummet down. Full of confidence, bravado, the big nice return, good. I went to pull another 180 degree turn, and by accident, went a few degrees too far. All of a sudden, I'm facing, and I realised that there was nothing I could do. And then, very last second, lifted my legs up, and that hurt my body. But first, was my legs. Probably saved my legs, but it a lot of break at the back. I bounced back. Knowing the profile of that mountain, but remarkably, I snapped. Parachute was another part of my body, and I came to a stop. Again, I remember a very specific moment where I thought, stay. And when that moment passed, it was almost as though it was all of the pressure that was there at the release. And I wasn't. And then I set about trying to sort myself out. I had a camera on my head, and I just never stopped around.
What's going through your head at that point?
What was actually going through my head was I really want to be able to let my brother know that I'm alive. So he's going to be rather worried. He was going to wait for me to land and then come down afterwards. I went around the corner out of his view, but someone else was watching and shouted.
呢架車等爸爸，
And then instantly,
呢架車等爸爸。
and then 14 minutes back to London again. My brother had already got there, so that was the point where I said, "Do you mind calling my wife? She works at the hospital." She was 4 minutes away. I remember her arriving at the room and in tears and coming to me and me lying with her and saying, "Don't worry, I'm fine." And then saying, "And I've given up street life." So it was a bit of a relief. At that point, we still didn't really know what was wrong with me.
When did you start to understand what was going on?
A few minutes later, when a cabal of concerned looking doctors appeared at the bedside with the news that I had to be prepared and I might never walk again. And I remember when they said that, I responded instantly saying, "That's all right. I've led an amazing life."
That is an incredibly positive reaction.
I was, for whatever reason, just immediately reconciled to my position. And I felt that if anyone was going to enjoy their life without the use of their legs, it's going to be me.
You're standing in front of me, clearly. What are the next things?
Yeah. First operation was on the day of the accident. I was wheeled in face down and they unzipped. What they discovered was that I snapped in half and then twisted. I think I was on call, and I think I was on my way home when I was called to resus for some crazy guy that apparently been trying to fly down a mountain, and he crashed, and apparently had come in paralysed.
That's Michael McCarthy, consultant spinal surgeon at the University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff. I asked him what he first thought.
Well, he's a nice young chap. What a horrible thing to happen to him. He was very pleasant, seemed quite upbeat. I think he was a little bit happy on the medications that had been given to him at the time. And he seemed he was pretty relaxed at the situation as I recall.
What were his injuries?
Niall had multiple injuries, but his main injury was an L1 burst fracture. So yes, exactly. So the spine has got 7 cervical or neck vertebrae, 12 thoracic or chest vertebrae, and then 5 lumbar vertebrae before you get to the pelvis. So he managed to break or fracture, it's the same thing, his L1 vertebrae. As Niall, I'm sure would have told you, I might have said his spine had exploded. He'd also, because of the nature of his injury, the top part of his spine had gone forwards on the bottom part of his spine. So that's what we call a dislocation. The aim of that was to realign his spine. The spine was bent, there was pressure on his spinal cord. We wanted to straighten the spine, fix it in that position. And we did get a CT scan and an MRI scan to check it. And as expected, he had bruised his spinal cord.
So one of the major concerns here is you've got a spinal cord that runs down all of these vertebrae, the major nerves that are going down that supply your legs, your arms. At this point, do you know how damaged those nerves are?
I was told that the end of my spinal cord, we called it equina, it looks like a horse's tail, was, in their words, 100% compromised. What it was crushed. So it's got a bruise, and that's what was affecting all of the nerves from my waist down. So I was on my back, completely on my back for 19 days. But on day 4, I was able to lift my leg from the hip. And that was a sign that there was enough nervous information going from my spinal
The
cord
nerves, some of them are
down to
working.
my legs. Some of them are working. The ones that are really badly damaged are the ones that are down my posterior chain. My calf, my hamstrings, and my glutes, all the things also have to be very bad. You cannot control them very quickly. That just happens. So I was able to lift my leg after about 4 days. What they weren't able to do was access an enormous number of fragments of my obliterated vertebrae, which were around the front of my stomach. You couldn't access that from the back. So I needed to go in for a second operation to take out all the fragments of that obliterated vertebra. So that operation was due to take place 6 days later, but on the morning of that operation, my surgeon was rear-ended by a police officer. So he quite sensibly decided it was not wise to go fiddling around in my spine. So it delayed another 10 or 11 days. During which point they moved me to London. I was adamant that I should stay at Whitehall. So there's lots of reasons for me wanting to be there. There's lots of people around, and I felt that was having a really positive impact on my mental health. My surgeon recognised that what I need was to be surrounded by patients who were much better than me. The ward that I was in was a trauma ward, so everyone was really unwell. I was one of the all well people, and it's quite easy to be depressed by the really negative things happening to people around you. And he moved me to a place where people were having shoulder surgery or just broken an arm, and all of a sudden I was to be surrounded by people that were fine, ostensibly. And honestly, I believe that non-medical intervention is as important for my recovery as the medical side of what he did. And it's
How did you feel when you got to that movement?
it was like a weight coming off my shoulders. I was moved to that hospital to have this second operation, quite elaborate. They open you up, slice into your torso around the rib cage on the left-hand side, and they chop out your 11th rib.
From our correspondent Graham Central.
The review will be asking some key questions. The most important, how did a 2-year-old boy die when he was in contact with social services? Bronson Battersby was found dead on January the 9th. A social worker had visited the home on the 2nd and then the 4th of January, but got no response. On both occasions, they contacted the police. It's unclear at this stage exactly how the police responded, but they have now referred themselves to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. Speaking to the Sun newspaper, Bronson's mother, who didn't live with her son or former partner, said if social services had done their job, Bronson would still be alive.
Buckingham Palace has announced that the King will attend hospital next week to be treated for an enlarged prostate. The statement said his public engagements will be postponed for a short period of recuperation.
Wait, what happened?
Earlier, Kensington Palace announced that the Princess of Wales was recovering from planned abdominal surgery. Here's our royal correspondent, Johnny Diamond.
The King has already cancelled engagements for tomorrow and Friday, and there'll be more cancellations to come. The palace says he'll go into hospital next week for an operation to treat an enlarged prostate. His condition, the palace says, is benign, and he'll continue to carry out his duties as head of state. Meanwhile, the Princess of Wales has had what Kensington Palace describes as a successful planned but normal operation. She'll spend up to 2 weeks in a central London hospital recuperating and is not expected to resume public engagements until after Easter. The BBC understands that the Princess's condition was not cancer, but was serious.
The Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has insisted that the government's plan to tackle inflation is working after a surprise increase last month. It rose to 4% from 3.9% in November. Mr. Hunt said inflation doesn't fall in a straight line. Labour said the rise is bad news for families. The Rochdale MP Sir Tony Lloyd has died at the age of 73. Sir Tony, who had represented Labour in the area for over 40 years, said last week that he had been receiving treatment for blood cancer and that the illness had progressed. Members of the orchestra and chorus at the English National Opera are on strike this week on contracts. Workout organised by the Musicians Union and Bentley happened on the 1st of February, coinciding with the opening night of the National Ambulance Strike. The first time members of the Musicians Union have taken industrial action in 40 years.
Now, we're counting down to the final call showdown.
When he sees his party tearing itself apart, hundreds of old men scrambling over a single open code, does he wish he had the courage to stick to his guns?
你陣間咧，如果你自己一個入去咧，哥哥，你問下你嗰個課室喺邊度先啊？你個 classroom 喺邊度啊？Music Theatre Year 5 定 6啊？你問下你喺邊度上堂先啊？我唔知邊個 studio 可能轉咗噶嘛，你自己衝嚟衝去嘅話，你就揾唔到啦，知唔知啊？個 Year 5定6啊，要啊？
Right, so we are a few hours away from voting. If the committee stays up for line-by-line examination, that must end by 5 December, could end earlier than that, at which point we may well have as many as 11 votes. The reason for that is that the SNP want to push as many votes as possible.
You don't know
When
how to
that is done, then we have an hour's debate on the third reason, that is on
That'd be pretty,
the
man.
bill, and then that is followed by a vote. That's the final vote in the House of Commons before it goes to the House of Lords. We do know that there will be rebellions on those amendments, possibly as much as yesterday, as high as that 60 Conservative MPs. The big question is how many rebels, Conservative rebels, will there be on that final vote? There has been very strong confidence in the government that they will get it through. The rebellion won't be high. The reason for that is, do you, they say to the rebels, want to kill this bill and kill the Rwanda plan? So there is that underlying confidence, but I am detecting some last-minute nerve. I talked to one government source who's absolutely at the heart of all of this. They told me the tide is going the right way, but it could all go wrong. I spoke to one of the leading rebels and I said, it's not really going to be a big rebellion, is it? And they said to me, Nick, don't make any assumptions.
Well, there you are. This evening, Nick, thanks. Nick walked down Westminster Forest and now, Kevin Ross Foster was Conservative MP, voted for a rebel amendment yesterday. Bill Cash's rebel amendment, leaving but is going to vote with the government on the substance of the bill. Kevin Foster says they're talking to us. I know Nick's just passed the mic, passing the mic, and they listen, so I think they're so tell us why you're backing the bill. I think it's going to work, which is why you're voting for very fundamental.
Well, the reason I voted for Bill Cash's amendment yesterday is I thought it would take the bill slightly further in terms of specifically responding to some of the points picked up by the Supreme Court. But overall, the bill does move us forward. You know, there are clear provisions around things like making a ministerial decision, whether to have to abide by an interim injunction from the European Court of Human Rights, which was the issue that stopped applying to Billy 2 years ago. So there is progress there. Yes, I'd have preferred to see some changes, but you know, to actually vote the whole bill down does not seem to me to be a proportionate reaction.
Now, what's been interesting watching the behaviour of the Conservative Party over the last 2 years is how strange it is that you would vote knowing that you're going to lose, so it's a gesture of disunity in a general election year. It's almost as though you don't care about the party and its standing with the public, which seems odd in an election.
Well, look, I spent virtually every day of the weekend and lots of time out making very clear to people why it's voting Conservative would be the right thing to do at the general election. Of course, Torbay, my constituents, one of the few places that saw the Conservative gain last May in the council elections. So, no, this was, you know, and if let's be honest, if you only ever vote in a particular way that you might win, then let's be honest, the opposition wouldn't have turned up for the last 14 years. So, for me, it's about, I would make a point. I felt Bill's was the right response, and I thought it would have made a difference. But I think what have you achieved by giving the Prime Minister, your Prime Minister, in an election year, a thing to pick up about? Well, I'm focused on actually delivering the Rwanda policy. I know there'll be a surprise to some
no
people.
difference to the Rwanda policy. You didn't have no difference to it.
I came on this.
You weren't going to make any difference to it. It's exactly the one that it was going to be, and yet you just humiliated your Prime Minister.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Others would want to focus on other things, but as one of the people, along with one of the current Prime Ministers, Tom Hersler, the former Home Secretary, that first looked at the offering of doing the Rwanda plan alongside a raft of other measures to deal with the small boats crisis, and have always been focused on that priority. And yes, I would prefer to see Bill Cash's amendment passed, but it didn't. And therefore we have a choice at third reading, not about particular nuanced details, but we all want to see, everyone on our benches wants to see the Rwanda plan work. That is what this debate is about. Yes, the opposition will cynically vote against without having any great alternative of their own. On the Conservative benches, we want to see this work. That's why I think tonight we do need to, if there is a third reading, the bill's unamended, that does mean we need to go and vote for it.
All right, Kevin Foster, appreciate you giving us your time. You now have to take the headphones off and hand the microphone over to the woman standing next to you. Thank you so much, Kevin Foster. Now, Maria Caulfield is our health minister. She's here to speak on behalf of the government this evening. Maria Caulfield, can you just talk to me about the things government has been doing in the last couple of days to calm them people? Is the civil service code, is that going to be changed to change the way civil servants are meant to respond to Rule 39 injunctions from the European Court of Human Rights? This was mentioned this morning. Is that happening?
So in the legislation itself, there is a provision around Rule 39, and ministers will be able to decide whether to overrule those court judgments, and that should give reassurance to colleagues who are worried. We're already disapplying the Human Rights Act, but for those who are concerned about judges' decisions, that should give some sympathy to those colleagues.
I want to know whether the civil service code is changed. That was briefed out this morning. It seemed to have gone by the afternoon, and I'm asking because it might be that you're all at the same room and just floundering around trying to work out things to sort of scratch up a few extra votes. Is this in the civil service code? Is there going to be any change?
It's not my understanding there's going to be a change, but we are trying to address colleagues' concerns, but also to point out to them that the Rwanda bill is only one small part of our efforts to tackle the small boats, and we are making good progress with the work we're doing.
Yeah. Can I
Quay冇
ask
son
你 another one? Yesterday,
今日分咗咗
the 150 extra judges
分咗咗啊
to see through, wade through cases that need to be
你唔
dealt
知
with
啊
in the line. Is that happening, or was that just a briefing from the
No, I think Prime Minister's been very clear that we may need extra capacity and is prepared to do that and is getting ready to do so, because we do expect that there will be challenges and we need to have that capacity to do that.
150 extra judges, because I thought court time wasn't really a government matter that was allocated by the court.
Yeah, but you know, we hear that there's extra capacity needed. We need to make sure that that extra capacity is there. You know, the Prime Minister has been very clear. He's going to do everything he can to make sure that we are able to get this Rwanda deal off the ground.
The Lady Chief Justice, who said it's up to her, she's in line with what you're saying. There will be extra capacity and extra judges. And it looks like that policy has not lasted a day.
Well, you know, that policy hasn't changed, and it is to reassure colleagues that if there is extra capacity needed, it will be provided, because, you know, the Prime Minister's been clear he wants to try every single thing possible to get this Rwanda policy off the ground through legislation,
police
treaty,
car there.
and if there is logistics to deal with that as well.
You have just described it, fascinating as a small part of the policy on dealing with the base. I mean,
보리스카 좀. 저거 어디 단체.
political pain you've endured for all of this.
Yeah, because we do need a deterrent, and the Rwanda plan, as well as being a practical way of being able to deal with people who enter the country illegally, is also going to act as a deterrent. And you know, we are making progress on the other elements. If you look at how we're processing claims, there's only 4% left of backlog before the end of the year. We've stopped over 25,000 people crossing the channel. The Albanian deal has reduced numbers by 93% of Albanians. So there is lots and lots of progress we're making in addition to this Rwanda work.
Often we talk about the politics and not about the substance, but a really crucial thing is for it to be a deterrent, a significant chance of being sent to Rwanda has to face someone who comes here on a small boat. And I've never really heard a very clear answer as to what proportion of, say, 30,000 people arriving in Europe are expected to actually go to Europe. Because we've heard of hundreds of first, maybe thousands later. But really, that's not very many. That puts you at pretty good odds if you're coming.
Well, it doesn't, because, you know, we've already returned 26,000 people in the last year. The Rwanda element will add capacity to that, and you know that if you're paying a people smuggler to bring you over across the channel, that you'll either be returned through the current mechanisms, and you'll be staying in, either somewhere like Madison, or you will be sent to Rwanda and your claim will be processed there, and they will be your options. And so, is it worth paying £10,000, £20,000 to a people smuggler when you're highly unlikely to be staying in the UK?
We have had people from Rwanda given political asylum here in the UK. Does that cause you any concern about us we're sending people claiming asylum over to Rwanda?
Well, I'm probably one of the few MPs who's actually been to Rwanda, and I spent 2 summers working in Rwanda. You know, I can testify that, you know, the safety of Rwanda and what they've been through as a country, and turn that country
Well,
around.
why then are we giving asylum to people from Rwanda?
So, you know, one of the judges who overturned our Rwanda policy, their concern wasn't about the safety of Rwanda. Their concern was about what happens to people once they're in Rwanda. Are they returned to the country of origin, and is that safe? So when they talk about is Rwanda a safe place, the judges didn't determine that it was unsafe, and in our treaty we've made very clear that we feel it is a safe place. But of course there'll be people from all sorts of countries who seek asylum here, you know, for a variety of reasons.
Rwanda and other countries.
Yeah, for a variety of reasons, but that doesn't mean that the country as a whole is unsafe.
Okay. Maria Corfield, Health Minister there, speaking for the government, are thinking they will probably win.
我要遲咗4分鐘就得啦。
Now, it's that right. And some of the other headlines.
Hamas officials in Gaza have described the last 24 hours of fighting as the most difficult and intense since the start of the war with Israel. Iran has admitted carrying out a missile and drone attack on Pakistani
呢
territory.
兩位， 我幫同你入去呢
has
兩位
insisted yesterday's strike targeted a militant group, Jaish al-Adl. And the Belgian authorities say this
To share, do PM at BBC.UK. So let's find out a little more about enlarged prostate. Of course, can be benign and is obviously can be malignant as well. Jeff Foster is a GP and a specialist in men's health. And Jeff, let's just start with how common, particularly among older, issues around the prostate.
Hi, thanks, Aaron.
having me. Benign prostate hyperplasia, which is the type of prostate problem we think that the king has, is extremely common. In fact, it's so common that 50% of men, the age between sort of 50 and 60, have it, and by the time you're hitting your 70s, 80% of men will have BPH in some form or another. So it's nearly everybody.
And how will you notice it? I know where this is going, but how will you notice you've got it?
The biggest problem with BPH is that we are all going to get it at some point. So the prostate is about a walnut-sized organ, and it sits there just above our bladder, and normally it grows during our life just as we get older, and that's absolutely fine, except that the urethra, the tube that we pass urine out of, goes right through the middle of it. So as that prostate gets bigger, eventually it starts to squeeze on the urethra, and our ability to pass urine properly starts to become compromised. So a really good example is when, I was at a restaurant a year or two ago with my son, and he's only 10 at the time, and you realise that he's able to pee with such amazing flow, he can go above his own head. And you look down and think, God, I'm in my 40s. What's happened to my flow? And it's just dribbles coming out. And that's normal for every guy. But the difference is when it becomes an impact on your life. So when you're getting up at night, when you're hesitating to start, when you're getting dribbling afterwards, when perhaps you're getting incomplete emptying, so you're needing to go again and again, you can't empty it. And then it has other risks in the future.
Right, if it gets really serious, firstly, how many enlarged prostates are serious conditions, are cancerous conditions?
So it's really important to differentiate that prostate cancer, which affects about 52,000 men each year, is not the same as a benign large prostate. So the two aren't automatically linked. Just because you have BPH doesn't mean you're going to get cancer. They're completely separate. But again, similar risk. As we get older, we will have a higher risk of prostate cancer. So simply by living longer, your prostate is a bigger risk of various medical problems. But the key is just to always look at those symptoms. And it's very hard to differentiate between BPH and prostate cancer, especially in the early stages.
Now, what is the procedure? Let's put aside the malignant cases. So if you've got a condition, large prostate, it's getting in the way of treating the what is the procedure you have?
So treatment of BPH is now infinitely better than it was even 5 or 10 years ago. So we can give you medical drugs that will help you relax your bladder better, so you can pass urine more fully and empty your bladder more completely. There are certain medications you can use to try and shrink the prostate down, but they're a bit more contentious. But the main ones are the surgical options. So whereas in the old days, we used to have to do a procedure called a TURP, where they sort of corkscrew their way through your prostate, which sounds almost as barbaric as it looks. We don't really do many of these anymore. We now have these much more less invasive procedures, things called green light laser, where it's a laser beam that goes through your prostate. We have a steam, and this steam device actually goes up through the urethra and steams the inside of the prostate, which again is a great procedure because all of these don't require a knife. So there's no cutting, there's no bleeding. Patients are in hospital for far less time. They don't have many infections after, and they can bounce back much, much more easily.
Yeah, well, Jeff, thanks for that briefing. And as I say, the King obviously opening up a conversation. What Johnny said needs to be opening up a conversation. Share your experiences. If we get too many, we will obviously not have to do justice. Now, it's 27 minutes past 5, and such a heartbreaking story. It's getting the death of Bolsonaro. 2-year-old Carolyn, father died of a heart attack in St. Bronson, Starland. Now, he was under watch of social services, and there is a fairly clear timeline of their involvement and stuff. The social worker communicated with Mr. Banks on the 27th of December and said their visit on the 2nd of January. They got no response when he came on the 2nd of January, so contacted the state inquiry. They then visited again on January 4th. That was about a week after the 27th when their last session. That call went unanswered as well. The police were contacted again, and then it was on the 9th that the social worker led into the property by the landlord, where the pet dog in fact was alone. A tragic outcome, which was perhaps quite close to being avoided. Well, Heather Sands, the Executive Director of Children's Services in Lincolnshire Council, shared her thoughts on the world process.
It's devastating, it's a really tragic incident. The team work incredibly hard every day to to safeguard families. They have great relationships with the families that we work with. This is, you know, absolutely devastating for us. And, you know, obviously very much more devastating for the family. And then our thoughts are with them.
Joanna Nicholson, safeguard consultant for social media, and has never used it on Facebook previously. Joanna, we've got this timeline, or I think it's a timeline, it's a pretty clear timeline. What is your assessment of what has gone wrong?
Good evening, Evan. I think I would say that the questions I would have in my head are what happened between Children's Social Care and the police. There was clearly some, I would have guessed that there was some form of miscommunication between those two agencies, because it's very common, first of all, for a family not to be there when a social worker arrives for a pre-arranged visit. That is very common. Then as a social worker you have to assess the level of risk, the level of concern. It's unusual to be at the stage where you're contacting the police on that first visit that you can't get in. And so that makes me think there were serious concerns about what was happening there. And what I would want to know is what happened between social care and the police.
Right, and what message went to the police and how the police responded. I suppose how much urgency was then that message, whether the police have got proportions.
Exactly, and there are processes in place for if you're one agency, so in the arena of child protection, if you're one agency and you feel you're not getting the response you should from another agency, there are very clear escalation processes that should happen in those circumstances. So again, lots of questions around that too.
Is it possible, this is the most horrible, unfortunate tragedy, in which you'll find that no one was grossly negligent in their job, but this is just, you know, a father dies and the 2-year-old boy is there with them, and it's Christmas and what comes up, people knocking on the door, getting in touch with it's not a good sort of normal.
It's highly possible, yes, and you know, I know I've read so much about social care was involved, social workers, they're to blame. It's so easy, and everybody wants to apportion blame when something so horrific happens, but it's always more complicated than that. And social workers are making assessments every single day about the levels of risk, and then the whole thing is that all the agencies need to be working really, really well together, and that is what will come out of the statutory reviews that happen following on from this horrific death. Exactly that. Exactly, and then there's a multi-agency review that at some point will be published. So we will have answers to some of these questions at some point in the future.
Joanna Nicholson. Now it is freezing outside. It's a great rainy wind, but still 0 degrees on the Wednesday. However, on here we do like to be. And the sun is actually probably through the programme. Oh, you get a shiver of delight from the cover. How about this? There's Blue, also known as the Dalesford Dipper. It's a wild swimming ride in the Yorkshire Dales. He enjoyed a refreshing cold swim this morning. I've just arrived at a local dipping spot near home, ready to have my daily dip. The conditions couldn't be better for us wild swimmers today. Snow on the ground, icy water, beautiful sunshine and a lovely blue sky. So let's see how this goes today. I'm sure I'll feel a million times better after this one. Now this bit of river belongs to a friend of mine, and it's very conveniently got some nice pool steps into it. That's not going to make it feel any warmer. So here goes. Got my feet in, and now up to just past my knees. And just walk in a little bit further where it's a bit deeper so I can dunk down. Wow. So beautiful. On the count of 3 I'm going to go down very slowly with a long out breath, and I'm going to get my shoulders right under. So here goes.
Because it's a small holiday really, and I think it's about giving people the confidence to spend their money, I guess. That if you buy a ticket to see a show that has somebody in it who you love and feel connected to and have maybe grown up with, on
my show, 222, a ghost story, we've cast people like Lily Allen and the pop star Cheryl and Laura Whitmore. These are the people who you have a real affinity with, and the idea of seeing them on stage doing something different feels very exciting, I think. It's the face of the next potential crisis, and I feel it's very keenly that we have to make it exciting, and indeed as exciting as Netflix. How can we draw out people who are comfortable sitting at home watching streamers and make them want to sit in the theatre? I was a kid who grew up precociously loving theatre from like the age of 6 or 7, but I look at my own kids now and I don't feel that they've got that same kind of relationship with theatre. They're exposed to so much magic through computer games and telly that theatre doesn't seem maybe as exciting. So you've got to find ways to make it really exciting, and I think celebrity casting is one way to do that. The side product of all of this is that it keeps theatre going. And, you know, you can, alongside them, you can give lots of opportunities to other less well-known actors.
I mean, Beverly, I often think of pantomime as the chance each year that theatres get to draw in crowds who maybe are not going to the theatre very often and don't think of it as a place for them. But you presumably are doing the same. I mean, you must be bringing in way more diverse audiences, I'd imagine.
The audiences are a lot more diverse, but the productions themselves have also lent themselves to be more diverse. The musical Memphis, which spoke about the blossoming of rock and roll in the 50s, a white DJ, a black up-and-coming singer, and the music that went with it kind of ticked so many boxes from a marketing and PR point of view that, you know, you looked around at the audience and it was a lot more diverse than maybe people who would go and see A Midsummer's Night Dream. It's so important that if you're going to do it right.
Danny, I'm interested because you sort of said, even whether or not they're good, you go to see them and to bond with them and to, you know, develop your relationship with that celebrity. But come on, are they any good? Hollywood actors, soap stars, can they act? I mean, are they going to do well on the stage?
It's a great question. I mean, I think, you know, will they be good or not is the thing that should draw people in, but to keep a show running, they've got to be good. You know, to be casting people who younger people want to see and who younger people will pay to go to a theatre for, I think is so important.
Yeah, we use that phrase replenishers on Radio 4 a lot. Discussions about the future of Radio 4. But Danny, do you worry about people being priced out? Because if you've got audiences under 35, they may not have that much disposable income to, I don't know, to throw it at 100 quid, 150, 120 quid a ticket. What are you charging for 222?
No, I do, and I think that's a separate conversation, but, you know, on 222 we've constantly kept our prices down, and we're one of the few shows in the West End that have done that, really, and certainly having just booked, you know, a big, exciting new musical opening that I won't name, but, you know, I spent 400 quid on my family of 4. I think theatre should be the cost of a meal, not the cost of a holiday.
Danny Novel, writer of that 222 A Ghost Story, and Beverly Knight as well. Now, we were doing a slightly counterintuitive thing, celebrating the cold weather. We heard from a wild swimmer earlier who was going to the stream. Frances Helena now, who saw snow for the first time yesterday.
Palace says he'll go into hospital next week for an operation to treat an enlarged prostate. His condition, the palace says, is benign and he'll continue to carry out his duties as head of state. He's expected to have reduced mobility for several weeks. Of more concern is, or was, the Princess of Wales's condition. She was admitted to hospital yesterday. The BBC understands the cause of her admission was not cancer, but was serious. The surgery was planned and, says her office, Kensington Palace, successful. The Princess will spend up to 2 weeks in hospital recuperating. Her husband, the Prince of Wales, will cancel his public engagements whilst she is in hospital and in the days immediately afterwards, when she's expected to recover in Windsor. The Princess is unlikely, says Kensington Palace, to resume official engagements until after Easter.
The Prime Minister's flagship Rwanda asylum legislation faces its most significant parliamentary challenge this evening. The bill as a whole was voted on by MPs. Conservative rebels have been trying to adjust the bill to ensure deportations could not be blocked by UK and international courts. Tory opponents of the amendments have described the tactics as legally unsound. Despite this internal division, Downing Street has said it's confident the safety of the Rwanda bill will pass. Here's our political correspondent, Leila Nafli. Having successfully seen off changes yesterday to its bill to declare Rwanda a safe country, ministers were confident this morning that they would be able to win round potential Tory rebels this afternoon. The Commons considered a further series of amendments. Central to discussions in the Chamber today were concerns that European judges would still be able to grant last-minute injunctions to stop flights taking off to Rwanda, as had happened in 2022 when the scheme was first announced. This morning, the Immigration Minister, Michael Tomlinson, insisted that the bill did put the power in the UK's hands.
The minister will decide. It won't be for the courts to decide. This is a really important point because it shows the Prime Minister's determination to ensure that this policy works, to ensure that we get the Rwanda scheme up and running.
In an apparent attempt to reassure sceptical backbenchers who want the legislation toughened up, Mr Tomlinson suggested the government was considering new rules to make clear to civil servants they should ignore rulings from the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. Later denied it was looking at rewriting the Civil Service Code that said new guidance on the bill would be issued to officials. During the Commons debate, the former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick, who resigned in opposition to the government's plan, again argued the legislation needed to go further if it was to be effective.
If we watch this trend, speeding down the tracks but moving slowly towards us, we've had ample opportunity to resolve this issue, and we've chosen to do absolutely nothing. We're moving forward with a scheme, but we don't know how to stop it. Pulling the pin out of the grenade, but we haven't got the guts to throw it.
With around 60 Tory MPs having defied the government yesterday to back changes, rebels will decide later this evening whether to vote down the legislation as a whole. So far, only a handful have suggested they are prepared to go this far. But if the government was defeated, it would be a significant moment of peril for Rishi Sunak. Chair of the Justice Select Committee, Sir Bob Neill, is among those Tory MPs appealing to colleagues to support the plan as it stands. The bill already went as far as it could and rejected Mr Jenrick's proposed changes.
His amendments will blow up the deal with Rwanda, because Rwanda has made it abundantly clear that anything that clearly breaches international law will be unacceptable to them, and they will withdraw from the amendment. So not only are the amendments proposed legally unsound and odious, they're actually ridiculously bad politics.
MPs will begin voting later this evening. Even if the legislation does pass, that is far from the end of the story. The bill will head to the House of Lords, where it's certain to encounter significant opposition.
The president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, has suggested that his country could return the money already spent by Britain if no asylum seekers are sent to Kigali. The UK has paid Rwanda £240 million with a further £50 million earmarked for the next financial year. Mr. Kagame was asked about the state of the agreement while walking between meetings at the World Economic Forum in Davos.
The Supreme Court said that your country's not safe. Is it safe? The refugees? You're getting hundreds of millions of UK taxpayers' money. There's not a single refugee.
Much of the focus of this afternoon's debate in the Commons was about the use of Rule 39 of the European Court of Human Rights. Our legal correspondent Dominic Casciano has this assessment of its significance.
The story of how Strasbourg might stop a Rwanda flight begins in 2001 on death row in Arizona. That year, the United Nations International Court of Justice ruled that the US had illegally executed two German-born bank robbers because Berlin had been denied a consular right to advise them. The European Court of Human Rights and other international bodies then agreed that such interim measures were vital to ensuring both parties get a fair chance to put their case. That was the legal rule that led the Strasbourg court to stop a flight bound for Rwanda in June 2022. The UK complained it had been given no reasons by the anonymous on-duty judge who took the call. Since then, the court has said named judges will explain their decisions and only intervene if there's an imminent risk of irreparable harm. The stakes in such cases could not be higher. Last year, French judges were furious when President Macron's government
For what's happening in Gaza. Iran has varying degrees of control over all these groups. Speaking at Davos, its foreign ministers said the red lights would all stop flashing if the war in Gaza came to an end. That's an exaggeration. The dangers currently facing the Middle East don't all stem from what's happening in Gaza. It's an inherently unstable part of the world.
頭先你遲咗好多定遲咗少少啊
The
？OK，
US
good。
has announced it will redesignate the Houthi militants as a terrorist organisation. The National Security Advisor Jake
如果我哋翻到屋企先定媽咪翻到屋企先？如果係我哋翻到屋企先定媽咪翻到屋企先？即係比要早啲瞓㗎嘛。佢星期二 Tuesday 去女士嗰時唔夠瞓㗎。
shipping amount to a textbook definition of terrorism. Redesignating the group combined with the joint military
佢陣間飲完奶就上去，係沖完涼飲完奶就上去瞓。
In practice, it's unlikely to have much further effect on the Houthis, who already face multiple sanctions. It carries dangers, too, of further destabilising the truce the US helped to broker in Yemen, while aid routes warn it could further restrict food and medicine supplies with the risk of famine rippling into the country. Washington's Iran hawks have always been keen to punish the Houthis for striking at the Saudis and America's other Gulf allies. It was President Trump who first designated them foreign terrorists, but that was immediately reversed by President Biden. The latest decision, which takes effect in a month, is a lower level terrorism designation than that previously imposed. The Houthis said the US moved
我哋搞佢，喂，做咩事啫？
to support the Palestinians.
An amber warning for snow is in place for Shetland, the north of Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland until this time tomorrow. Forecasters are predicting there could be up to 16 inches of snow on higher ground.
16 inches.
16 inches?
Wow.
More than I've seen in my
The
entire
Health
life.
Security
Yeah,
Agency
that's
has
more than a
issued
foot.
another
A
weather
foot.
warning. Temperatures dropped last night to some of the lowest so far this winter. The Home Office and Essex Police are facing legal action in connection with the murder of Conservative MP Sir David Amess, who was stabbed to death while hosting a constituency surgery in Leigh-on-Sea more than 2 years ago. His daughter, Katie Amess, has filed a personal injury claim at the High Court. Her lawyers say she wants to ensure proper accountability for the murder. And Price reports.
Sir David Amess was murdered by Ali Harbi Ali, an Islamic State fanatic who tricked his way into the meeting by pretending to be an NHS worker. Ali said he stabbed the MP in retaliation against politicians who voted to bomb Syria. The Old Bailey was told that Ali had been known to authorities and referred to the government's Prevent programme. Lawyers for Katie Amess said she was taking the action to ensure proper accountability and learning from her father's death. A Home Office spokesman said it took MP's safety very seriously and significant work had been taken following the tragedy. Essex Police said it remained committed to supporting MPs in the execution of their public duty and regularly reviewed and advised security arrangements.
The veteran Labour MP Sir Tony Lloyd has died at the age of 73. Last week he revealed he had an untreatable form of leukemia. Sir Tony was first elected to the Commons in 1983, going on to serve as a foreign minister in Tony Blair's first government. In 2012, he became Greater Manchester's Police and Crime Commissioner before returning to Parliament 5 years later as MP for Rochdale. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, said Sir Tony would be remembered for his dedication to public life and his desire to make the world a better, fairer place. Members of the orchestra and chorus at the English National Opera say they'll go on strike next week in a dispute about band job cuts. The Musicians' Union and Equity said the orchestral sector was going through an extremely difficult time. For its part, the ENO said it would keep talking to the unions. The industrial action could affect performances, as our music correspondent Mark Savage explains.
This is the first time that members of the Musicians' Union have gone on strike in more than 5 years. They are currently in rehearsal for a production of The Handmaid's Tale, an adaptation of Margaret Atwood's novel about female suppression and reproductive rights. It is due to open on the 1st of February, but the first night will be cancelled if industrial action goes ahead. The musicians are protesting the proposals to cut 19 orchestral jobs and to move other performers onto part-time or casual contracts. More than 90% of those affected voted for industrial action. Violinist Glenn Sheldon said the plans would have a disastrous effect on people's livelihoods.
The performers do not know how they're going to earn their money. I personally am having to seriously think about whether I can continue in this career we are facing the destruction of one of the great musical institutions in this country.
The cuts were proposed after the Arts Council announced that the ENO's annual grant of £12 million would be cut to zero from
你今日嗰個跳舞點樣啊？嗰個
said it planned to relocate to Manchester.
你哋係咪學嗰個 showcase 嗰陣時跳嘅舞啊？
ENO said it
嚇
was
係咪啊？
disappointed by the strike action
嚇
and that it wanted these issues to be resolved
What telling me?
around the negotiating table.
In rugby union,
你 showcase 嗰陣時會跳咩啊？
George has been named as the England captain for the Six Nations after Owen Farrell ruled himself out of the tournament. With half of the players
你 showcase 嗰陣時會跳乜嘢啊？
in France in the autumn have kept their places. 7 uncapped players are in the squad, among them Chandler Cunningham South, Ethan Roots and Finn Smith. Billy Vinipola and Carl Sinker have been dropped, while Henry Slade and Luke Cowan-Dickey have been recalled. A lonely swan has become a regular visitor to a school in Shropshire, where it spends every day staring at its reflection in one of the windows. The bird, which has been nicknamed Sally, uses a zebra crossing on a busy road in Telford to get there. As our Midlands correspondent Phil Mathew reports, various theories have been put forward to explain the strange behaviour.
Every day, Sally makes her way from her nest in the Mad Brook on the outskirts of the town, crosses the road, walks into the grounds of the Telford Park School, settles outside reception, and starts staring. She's become a regular fixture. Billy Goodall is the school business manager.
If I was at school in the mornings and I talk to students, they would sit next to the reception and stare into its reflection, and then see it for a full day. And one of the kids was quite fond of it and very respectful, despite being told not to feed this one. I think if you feed it.
No one can say for certain why Sally does what she does, but there are several theories. One is that other swans have moved into her territory and without a mate of her own, she's being forced out during the day. Another suggestion is that she mistakenly believes the mirror image is a rival to challenge. But most prefer the more romantic notion that having lost her own mate, Sally is seeking solace in her own reflection.
The headlines again. Lincolnshire County Council has begun a rapid review into the death of a 2-year-old boy who reportedly starved to death alongside the body of his father. The King is to have treatment in hospital for an enlarged prostate, while the Princess of Wales is currently in a private clinic recuperating from abdominal surgery. Downing Street says it's confident the government's Rwanda asylum legislation will clear the Commons despite last night's rebellion by Conservative MPs. China's population has dropped for the second year running by more than 2 million people. An attempt to restore power share in Myanmar has failed and DUP vetoed the election of a Stormont speaker. BBC News.
We're just led this evening by Vincent Costello. Well, comedy in an order here on Radio 4 as Paul is convinced there's something strange going on in the KL community. Meanwhile, on the living, I'm Tom Heath.
And I'm Helen Chelsea.
A journalist
And a physicist.
ready to tackle the big issues on the planet.
Rare Earth.
Wow.
BBC Radio 4. Each week we're going to be
What am I
tackling
watching
a
now?
news story about the environment and wildlife.
Okay.
We'll take you to places you've never been.
I ain't had an arm spent 6 months on uninhabited island.
Search for creatures probably never heard of.
This is Seasquirt. They are called Seasquirt for a reason.
And we're going to be meeting the brave and clever people with fresh ideas to help us and nature thrive. Rare Earth with Helen Chersky and Tom Heath, Fridays at midday on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds.
Now on BBC Radio 4 was broadcast in 2019. Sam Barker is on a prison visit. Starts a little bit alive.
I'm not even fucking doing anything, baby.
Oh yeah.
Crown the Community by Harry Fleming and David Ramsden. I predict a riot.
Joan, come out now! No, I won't. This is totally unprofessional. I don't care. I'm not coming out. Joan, come out! What's going on? Joan is locked herself in the toilet and won't come out. Joan, this is Claire. I command you to come out now. No! She isn't previously client. Totally unprofessional. That's exactly what I said. Who are these clients? The Pendreds? Joan!
boy Scylla.
Darren has some clients coming in called the Pendred. Can I come in? There's five minutes. You can't leave the office unattended. There's Archie, Manjula, and Wesley. They can man the office. No, they can't actually. Why not? Isn't it with us?
Come in.
Come in.
You've got to know me. To you, Jane, anytime. Thank you. Take a seat. Thanks. So how you doing, Jane? You're rested and recovered after your little time out.
Absolutely the best.
Yeah? Totally good for work.
It is a fiddle.
No trips to the dark place.
Not one.
Any worries?
Worrying does not take away tomorrow's troubles. It only takes away today's peace.
That, you know what, that is a good attitude, and I have to say that you are totally transformed from the person I had to sign off sick 3 months ago.
My mental health has never been better.
Great, because next time...
Well, won't be next time.
So what can I do for you today?
I've been busy, but recently, actually it's been quite a while now, I've had the feeling, well, actually it's more of an impression, a sort of an impression.
Oh, God, spit it out, Joni.
Basically, I believe, I'm pretty convinced, I'm in a play.
You're in a play.
Well, I'm a character.
Well, what sort of play?
Not sure, but it's definitely some kind of fictionalised episodic narrative.
Yeah. Well, how long have you had this feeling?
Since series 8.
Well, who else is in the play?
Everybody is.
Oh, Ryan?
Oh, yes.
Apart from having this vague feeling, what would make you think you're in a play?
Little things.
Little things like what?
Well, we're all qualified social workers, right?
Right.
Working in a social work office.
Yeah, that's right.
So how come we never do any social work?
Well, I mean, we do.
We don't. We just seem to have lots of team meetings.
Jane, if you don't mind me saying so, you look really tired.
I haven't slept for 2 nights.
Okay, insomnia.
I forced myself to stay awake.
Why would you do that, Jane?
Because I might doze off, and whilst I'm asleep,
What, Jane? What might happen whilst you're asleep?
I might get written out.
Janie, what the hell are you on about?
Think about it. Helen, written out. Megan, written out. Irene, written out.
Who's Irene?
No idea, written out before I arrived.
No, I'm sorry, Janie, I've got to take this. Hi, Claire, how's the prison visit going? Sorry, Claire, can you repeat that? It's really noisy at your end. What's going on? The one's really terrible. Wait, I thought you just said you're in the middle of a riot?
I did. I'm stuck in the middle of a prison riot, but I just wanted to call and let you know categorically that it isn't my fault, okay? No matter what people may say, and furthermore, I am not, I repeat, I am not their leader. Sorry to interrupt, Claire, but I thought you'd like to know that all the barricades were in place and we secured the wing. Oh, really? That was jolly prompt. Well done. Claire says well done. Hi, Libby. Libby, are you still there? Yeah, well, I know it might sound like I'm their leader, but really, I'm not. There's just been a tiny bit of a misunderstanding. Yeah, I don't know how it happened, although, as you know, I am effortlessly charismatic, so that may have been a factor. The truth is, I just pointed out to the inmates a couple of unfair aspects of prison life, and I then helped them to start a fire with some sticks, which I learnt from the woodcraft folk. Hold on a second, Libby. What's up? The girls they just want to lift me up on their shoulders and parade me around like a goddess. 1, 2,